Alright guys, we've got a fun one today. We're going to demonstrate how to use this box joint jig. We're going to show it being used on a Laguna Fusion F2 table saw. It's got a lot of nice interesting features here that I think it separate it from the pack. It'll help you time and time again make perfect looking box joints on your table saw. Stick around, we'll get into it. Well, I want to go over a couple of features that make this jig unique and really fun to use. One thing is it has an onboard storage slot for the spacer that you'll use to set your jig up for the first time. And that just tucks away on the fixed fence so you won't misplace it. That's really nice to have. We do have these oversized knobs on the back side of the jig. Those are easy to loosen up, and once you tighten them, they just lock dead in position. These are available from woodpeckers at woodpeck.com, or you can use similar knobs from Rockler. They have large over-molded rubber knobs that are another nice option, but these red ones are from woodpeckers. Another thing I sourced from woodpeckers was the small knurled nuts that goes over the micro adjust system. And the idea here is you can make small adjustments to fine-tune the fit of your jig with this little stop. And we'll show you how this works. You can loosen these knobs, and that lets you slide the fence left or right. There's a fixed fence and a movable fence. So this lets you basically adjust the movable fence left and right. And there's also a micro adjust feature right here. This fence I know I have set with the micro adjust feature, so I can just slide it up to the stop and retighten those knobs, and I know I'll have the exact same setting. If I did need to adjust the micro adjust, basically just loosen the two silver knurled nuts and then back this threaded rod out. The stop block is a key to the micro adjust feature. Here you see the hardware that we're using. This is actually the threaded rod from a shop toggle clamp. It's a pretty common item. It's a little over 3 inches long. If you have one of those, that makes a great micro adjust feature. However, if you don't have one, a 3-inch 1/4x20 bolt would work just as well. All you need from there is these little knurled nuts. They do need to have a diameter that's slightly smaller than 3/4 of an inch. You don't want them to protrude past the fence. But these little aluminum knurled nuts from woodpeckers work fine. And from there you just thread that into a 1/4x20 threaded insert that we've installed into the stop block. Again, lagunatools.com, you'll find a blog there with all the dimensions. But we'll run this in and add the other knurled nut. When the stop block with micro adjust hardware is installed, it looks just like that. And you can just attach it to the jig with a couple of square drive screws. Here's a cool feature. The spacer that we'll use to set the jig initially stows right in the fixed fence. Just plow a 3/8 inch groove in the top edge of your fixed fence, and that's a nice little keeper for the spacer. The key is sized specifically to be the width of your dado stack, and the spacer is just an offcut from the key. And the jig just goes together with your T-bolts. Got that nice slot that allows for the adjustability of the jig. And then just the knobs from the backside. If you ever need to change the height of the dado blade to accommodate a different thickness of workpiece, it's a great idea to make a zero clearance insert to back up the cut. The zero clearance insert is nothing more than a piece of 1/4 inch thick MDF. Once you've made a slot for the key, it just drops in position on the jig. You'll likely be able to flip the zero clearance insert over to get multiple uses out of it. Use an actual workpiece to set the height of the dado blade. This is 1/2 inch stock and a 3/8 inch wide dado stack. Set the blades so that the tooth is just proud of the material. Loosen these two knobs on the back of the jig, and that'll allow you to make adjustments to the fit of the cut. And then we'll retrieve this little spacer. Next, clamp the spacer in position along the key that's built into the jig, and you'll see that you have some lateral adjustability to fine-tune the jig. In order to have this freedom of movement, you'll have to loosen up the micro adjust knob here on the fixed stop block. Once you've done that, you'll have the lateral movement, and go ahead and slide the movable fence over until the spacer just touches the blade. In that position, we'll lock down the red knobs, and you're okay to go ahead and remove the clamp and spacer. Spacer tucks neatly back into the jig, and at this point what you'll do is advance the micro adjust until it contacts the sliding fence, and then you can go ahead and tighten up the knurled nuts. And that's just so if you ever have to move the sliding fence, you can easily register that in the perfect position again. And we'll drop the zero clearance insert onto the jig, and you can secure that with a small clamp if you like. So just slide your first workpiece up against the key and make the first cut. On this first workpiece, it's almost automatic. Just put your first notch over the keyway, make sure you're all the way down against your jig, and continue cutting. So here you can see as we finish that cut, we have just a sliver of wood that remains, and that's actually perfect. You can just rip this to final width when all the pieces are cut, and this would even sand off. It's just such a small sliver. But if you have a little 1/8 inch wide piece of material left, that's fine. Just leave your blanks a little extra wide before you cut them. Those can always be trimmed after the box joints are made. So the key thing here is to take the workpiece that you just finished, flip it around this way, and register that first notch over the keyway. From there, bring in your second workpiece and butt it up against the first. What I like to do is clamp that second workpiece in place onto the jig, and that way I can actually just remove this first piece and not worry about marring the edge of the box or whatever it is I'm building. So from there, we'll go ahead and make the first cut on this second piece. Okay, well, it looks like the cuts on our test piece are just a little bit too tight, so we'll make that micro adjustment and try again. Again, to make the micro adjustment so we can see this, let's pull off the sacrificial board. And you can see that the critical dimension is the spacing between the dado blade and the key. That's a little bit too wide for us. Okay, so the most accurate way to make an adjustment is to know exactly where you stand. So I'm getting about 388.388 inches on the pins, and the spacing between the pins is coming out to about 380. And so if I need to make a 8 thousandths adjustment between my current setting and my new setting, and so we'll grab a feeler gauge and do that. Okay, so how do we make that adjustment? We know that we need to decrease the space between the key and the dado blade to make our fit a little bit looser. And so the best way to do that is just to loosen the micro adjust, back that out to give yourself some clearance to get an 8 thousandths feeler gauge between the tip of the micro adjust and your sliding fence. Now these red woodpecker's knobs are still locked in place at this time. I haven't moved those. I'm just creating the gap here. So I'll bring it right out to the feeler gauge, and then I'll tighten these two knurled nuts to lock that in place. And then what I can do is loosen the red knobs, slide the fence out of position, to release the feeler gauge, and then butt the movable fence into the micro adjust and retighten the red knobs. So here again, we reverse the first workpiece, register it over the key, and bring our second workpiece into position. When you get the fit dialed in, just make sure to flip your workpieces like this to maintain the alignment on the other side. Alright, let's see how we did with our fit. And in the second attempt, things just snap right together. You get a really good fit. And the neat thing is, it's clean on both sides. There's no tear out on either face, and that's simply because of this sacrificial fence that we were able to use. Creates a zero clearance effect and really helps us to get clean results on the finished product. You can aim for a fit however you like it, but sometimes, you know, when it actually goes together without a mallet, the glued up end product is a little bit better. If you have to force the fit and then you get glue on there and things swell a little bit, you may actually struggle with it. So this is the kind of fit that I usually aim for. It's not loose, but it actually assembles without too much struggle, and the fit is just perfect. Alright guys, there's the rundown on how to use your adjustable box joint jig. If you'd like some more details and all the specs on how to build this for your own shop, go to lagunatools.com and look for my blog. I'm Willie Sandry, thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next time.